Hello, Tim from Fair Play Now on the 31st of December 2021, last day of the year, and well, what a year it's been, and I think we are in a vastly different place to where we were on the 1st of January this year. We really are, and I've got to tell you, I am optimistic about going into 22, and I'll give you a couple of reasons why. First of all, and I'm going to give you some video recommendations which is going to kind of reiterate this from some credible sources, including a doctor, which is going to be the main recommendation, his video. But I think that everybody really knows now that the scariant that starts with O is no worse than a common cold. And the only people who don't seem to realise that is the mainstream misleader. But if you go out there and talk to pretty much anyone out on the street, friends or whatever, I think that is the general consensus. And I think a lot of this kind of muzzleage that you see around is just people who toe the line because they don't want aggro. Of course, you've got the kind of scared ones who are going to be jumping at shadows, I think, pretty much for the rest of their lives. But there's always been worriers and people who have kind of hung on the every word of the mainstream misleader, and really they can't get out of this cycle of doom. But they're only a relatively small percentage of society. But I think anyone who's got a bit of common sense out there, anyone who kind of talks to other people out there, kind of now knows that this scariant isn't really anything like what the mainstream misleader is cracking it up to be. And the doctor that I'm talking about here, he actually says that it's a good thing, because if you get a very mild variant of anything, well, that's going to give you natural immunity, which is going to fight off not only that particular one, but any other variant that comes along as well. So he's actually saying that it's the best thing that could have happened, and that the scariant that starts with O is going to mark the end of this whole lurgy nonsense. And there's also reports coming out of South Africa now saying the same thing. I know down there they were saying from day one that it's super mild, to quote the doctor who actually found the thing in the first place. And they are saying that it is kind of tailing off down there now, as it kind of tails off as quickly as it sort of appears, so they're saying. And again, this doctor whose video I'm going to recommend at the end of this says the same thing. There's data now to suggest that it's already starting to go down in this country. So I think this is the last hurrah for the whole lurgy nonsense, and the fact that this thing has transpired to be super mild has kind of woken a lot of people up. They've seen the mainstream misleader kind of blowing it up out of all proportion, and anyone who's at all switched on knows that. And it's kind of shown a lot of people that the mainstream misleader can't be trusted. So that, I think, is a really positive and good development. So another video that I'm going to talk about is, it's one that Nigel Farage has done very recently. Now, I don't care what you think of him, and I'm not here to say anything about him one way or the other, But one thing I've noticed about him in the last couple of years is if he says something, leaving the whole Brexit thing aside, and obviously we all know his stance on that, but when he commentates on any other issue, particularly anything to do with the lurgy, he doesn't say anything unless he's totally sure that that's the right direction, and he won't jump on a train until he's 110% certain that it's going to leave the station in the right direction. That kind of sums him up as far as I'm concerned. Leaving the Brexit thing, his stance on that aside, but everything else that he speaks out about, that is how I regard him. And he is now coming out and saying that he will not be having the rooster. He says he can't really see the point of it, basically, and therefore he is going to take a lot more convincing before he even considers it. I'll just leave a link in the description box below and the comment section below, I should think, where he says that, so you can pass it on. It's quite a good one to pass on because he is a very mainstream figure, and it doesn't matter what you think of him, the fact that he's a mainstream figure saying that he is not going to be having the rooster is, I think, very, very significant. And, you know, anyone who's sitting on the fence about having the rooster or any of them, you know, him saying he's not going to have it may well sway quite a lot of other people. So I think it's a worthwhile one to watch, even if you don't like that bloke at all. And the third video, it's a guy called Mahar Tusi. Many of you might know who he is. If you don't, he's a guy in this country, in the UK. I used to see him when the whole Brexit thing was in full flow, kind of in 2019, when every other news item was all to do with Brexit, and he was a big commentator on that. So I used to follow him with that. Haven't really watched too much of him recently with regard to the lurgy situation, but he's just come out with a report in the last day or two. Somehow he's got some information where the government and some of the government advisors are admitting that the whole kind of crisis that we've been in for the last couple of years is over. So that is a very hopeful message, and I'll put a link to his video in the description box below as well, and you can sort of have a look at that. But circling back to the main one that I'm recommending, it's Scariant that starts with O, deaths, a surprising number, and this doctor, he's a guy called, with his channel's called Peak Prosperity, and thanks to the subscriber, by the way, who recommended it to me. And yeah, he gives a lot of hope. So that kind of, with those three very hopeful videos, I think we are going to go into 2022 with an expectation of a lot more hopeful stuff to come than certainly this time last year when we were coming into this year. And it's been quite a year, hasn't it? Not all doom and gloom, and there's been plenty of that, of course, but there's been a lot of positives out of it. 2021 has been the year when I started going on kind of shopping trips, as I've got to call them, and I've never done anything like that before this year, and I've done over a dozen of them now just in this year, so it's become a really good part of my life. Stand in the park, where I've met a lot of fantastic people there, and I've seen that grow into quite a big organisation across the country that is just becoming more and more well known, and there's even people from health professionals starting to go along to them as well and speaking out about things they're seeing in those big places that start with H, where you go when you're poorly. And what some of these guys are reporting isn't exactly what you'd hear in the mainstream media. Let's put it that way. So that has been a really good development of this from this year. And I think as we go into 2022, there's just going to be a lot more of these things developing. And I think the government and these other powers that shouldn't be, they kind of know that they've shot their bolt, as it were, and they know they've lost, and all they can now do is retreat in an organised, orderly way, and hope that they can batten down the hatches and escape any future retribution that they deservedly face. I don't think that will happen. I think justice will catch up with them, but I think they realise the writing is on the wall. There's also, I don't know if you saw the recent Carl Vernon video, you've even got some of these biggest shills starting to question the narrative now. He was going on about Piers Morgan and Jeremy Vine, both kind of starting to come out with things that's at least hints that they are not quite so certain of their ground now. So that's another hopeful sign. So I think going into 2022, I am full of hope. I know some of you guys accuse me of being a little bit too optimistic, a little bit too hopeful, but hey, it's my nature, and that's what you're going to get if you watch me and sort of come onto this channel. So a message of hope, and I think, as I've demonstrated with these signs I've discussed, there is a lot I've got a lot of reason to be hopeful. So it's not just purely wishful thinking. I am basing my hopefulness on a lot of signs that I'm seeing out there now. So I think we're going to go into 2022 with a lot more hopeful things to come, and I'll leave it here for now with this peak prosperity video recommendation. I'll leave that in the description box and the comment section below, and also leave the other two videos I mentioned. They'll probably just be in the description box, not in the comments, because this platform doesn't like you putting loads of links into the comments for some reason. So I will probably just put those in the description box. So I'm just going to finish this by once again thanking you very much for sort of being with me in 2021. I regard sort of my subscribers, especially the regular ones who watch all my videos and comment under most of them, as friends now, and you're sort of part of my life now, and that will continue into 2022. So I thank you very much, and also thanks to the newer people here as well on the channel. And may I wish you a very happy new year. Have a good time tonight if you're doing anything, and let's go into 2022, make it a happy one, make it a victorious one, and make it a decent year. Tim from Fair Play Now, thanks for watching.